It is day 221 of the second Trump administration. And this evening, fallout from firings at the Federal Reserve and Centers for Disease Control are in focus for all of us as President Trump tightens his control over the government. Today, Lisa Coke, the Federal Reserve governor he removed from the central bank's board, officially filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump, as well as the Fed board and chairman himself, Jerome Powell, over her dismissal. Tomorrow morning, she will have her first hearing in the case. And down at the CDC, the White House has tapped Jim O'Neill, the top deputy to Health Secretary Robert Kennedy, to be the acting director, even though the lawyers for the embattled former leader, Dr. Susan Menarez, are adamant that she remains the head of the agency. Outside the Atlanta headquarters, staff applauded senior officials who resigned yesterday in protest after Menarez was fired. Earlier, one of those officials spoke to MSNBC about the decision to leave the agency. And here's a bit of what they said.
Over the past few months, things at CDC have been really difficult when it comes to having science and data-driven decisions. We were also concerned when Dr. Menarez was called to the Secretary's office after trying to make some updates and scientific improvements to this vaccine work. She was not allowed to do those. And so we had determined that if we don't have a scientific leader at the agency, we could not remain.
Meanwhile, the latest victim of the administration's purge is a name you might not know, Robert Primus. He is a member of the Surface Transportation Board, an independent agency which regulates freight railroads. The decision to remove him comes as the board weighs a proposed merger of the Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern Railroad companies. With that, let's get smarter with the help of our leadoff panel tonight. Peter Baker is here, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Natasha Korecki, NBC senior national political reporter, and retired Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath. She's also the co-founder of the Truth in the Barrel podcast. Peter, you covered Trump's first term. You have spent a lot of your time with him in press conferences, interviewing him one-on-one. You saw him fire people in his first term, but this is nothing like we have ever seen. What strikes you about this?
Yeah, this is like nothing we've ever seen. You're exactly right. In his first term, he was firing people who were around him, who didn't fit with him, people he fell out with, people he didn't really know in the first place. Now they're reaching deep into the federal government and firing people who have, who are expertise officials. They're not meant to be political officials, people who are telling us what the vaccine information should be, who are telling us what the latest unemployment numbers are, who are telling us what climate change science is telling us. He's reaching deep into the government at this point to try to shape the fact base on which policy is made so that it suits his own policies. And what's really striking is some of these most recent firings, including at the CDC, are people that he himself put in place. She had only been in place for about 45 days or something like that since she was approved by the Senate. Similarly, saw at the IRS just the other day, President Trump fired his own appointee to the IRS because he didn't want to go along with plans to use secret, sensitive information that's held by the IRS to help the hunt for illegal immigrants and so forth. So he's now got to the point where he is no longer even trusting the people he initially entrusted with these sensitive jobs.
Natasha, that scene outside the CDC today was incredible, especially after what we've seen with DOJ and mass firings across the federal government. Do you think we are starting to see something that could, set off a wider government resistance?
I think there's a lot of people who are feeling it. I mean, from our reporting, from talking to various federal officials who have been fired or who are still there. But the signal the Trump administration is sending is the same one consistently. You must obey. If you do not obey, you are out. And again, as Peter made the excellent point, these are people in some of these cases who the Trump administration put into these jobs, and it still wasn't good enough. So there may be more uprising. I mean, I think reaching deeper into these agencies that are not supposed to be political at all, were never considered political until now. That's setting a dangerous precedent. That is something that could get more people, rank and file voters, involved and engaged in talking to their Congress people. That's really the only signal we're seeing that anything is going to change, is if voters really get disturbed by this stuff and start talking to the representatives.
Amy, decode this one for us. The president made a point of tweeting the removal of Lisa Cook, taking direct ownership of that, but he didn't do that when it comes to Dr. Menarez. Why do you think he's not coming out directly and saying that he fired her?
Well, I have no idea. I'm not sure the president even thinks that much about those types of things. But I would say this: what you're seeing right now with these firings in the CDC, and not just with HHS and the CDC and FEMA, but also remember, it wasn't that long ago that they just fired the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the National Security Agency, the top lawyers at the National Security Agency. And what that's going to do is it sends a message, as was just stated. You're not going to have leaders that will say truth to power. And that is a national security concern. And also, where are the leaders in Congress right now? I mean, Senator Cassidy is a doctor. Mitch McConnell is a polio survivor. I mean, these guys know how damaging this is, and it's very dangerous for our country.
Well, Peter, tell us about Jim O'Neill. That's not a name most people are familiar with. He's taking over, supposedly, from Menarez.
Yeah, he's a political appointee, an RFK junior deputy. He's not somebody who has, the same kind of background that the professionals have traditionally had at the CDC. He's being put in there because he's going to advance a political agenda. That's the reason why he was picked. I mean, this is the thing that's really striking about this. The people who are now in charge of healthcare policy in this country are people who have lived on the fringes of conspiracy theories and, disavowed, disabused, disproven junk science over the years. But now suddenly they're given the reins of these agencies that people trust, or are meant to trust anyway, for impartial, neutral, evidence-based advice, right? At this point now, how much can Americans trust the CDC when it tells them what kind of vaccines they should take or shouldn't take? What kind of trust will there be in professional federal health care advice if it's perceived to be political? And rather than, basing what their decisions are on actual, consensus science, it feels anyway, certainly the appearance is given, is one that is political. And that's not something we've seen traditionally in these agencies, which leave, of course, a great deal of uncertainty and doubt among at least a lot of Americans who don't know how to evaluate these kinds of questions themselves.
Natasha, Amy said it just a moment ago. Senator Bill Cassidy is a doctor. He got Kennedy to make promises about maintaining vaccination policies before he was confirmed as HHS secretary. And next week, RFK is going to be speaking before committees that Cassidy is sitting on. What have we heard from Kennedy on any of this, and what is likely to come out of this hearing? I cannot imagine Kennedy is happy. At best, he's got to be embarrassed.
It's interesting. I sat through the confirmation hearing of RFK getting out of committee. Cassidy could have killed that in committee, and there was a lot of pressure on him to do it. There was a lot of pressure on him to not do it. And he repeatedly cited that he was a doctor and that he needed to have RFK Jr.'s word that he was going to follow the science, that it was going to be evidence-based science, and that he was not going to attack vaccines. And RFK Jr. did say that he would do that. He testified under oath that he would do that. He is very much not doing that right now. The other thing that I thought was very interesting at that time and may come up again was, what are RFK Jr.'s own financial interests here? I don't think that gets a whole lot of coverage, but there were, a couple of moments there where Senator Warren was really trying to put his feet to the fire and vow that he wasn't going to take profits for 4 years after he left this position, that he wouldn't take any money based on policy decisions he made. And he refused to agree to that. So there are a lot of questions, and we know that RFK Jr. also does a lot of work with different law firms and gets fees for law firms for recording, for making videos so that they can get more clients based on some of this is based on vaccines. So there's a lot of questions for him that Congress should have. Will they actually do it? That's another question. And again, it comes back to voters putting pressure on them. But so far, what we've seen from this Congress is that they're very much not doing that. Also with Cassidy, politically, he's in a tough position because even questioning RFK Jr. when he did, he ended up, getting him through. But even questioning him got him into all kinds of political trouble back at home. And, he's up soon. So it's going to be really interesting to watch to see who really stands up here.